give you the problems that people were having in assignment 4, depth of field. And in that assignment, there were several reoccurring issues. One issue was that the exposure was incorrect. So here we're looking at the first photograph, and that looks totally fine. But as we go through the images, we see that the images are getting darker and darker. Now, every image that you submit has to be correctly exposed, but we can see here by looking at this person's table that the f-stops are right, but the shutter speed really hasn't changed very much, and the ISO is staying the same. And what that means is, as that person goes through their f-stops, they're getting less and less light. So we look at this f-stop chart. They start at 5.6, and you can see that the aperture is pretty large. But as they progress throughout the table from 8, 11, 16, 22, and 32, the aperture is getting smaller and smaller. So that means there's less light entering the camera, which explains why, when we look at this image, they're getting progressively darker as we go along. The first image is at 5.6. The last image is at f32. Now, what did they have to do in order to fix their problems? Well, every image has to be correctly exposed. So you put your camera on aperture priority, 5.6. You set your ISO on auto, not on a set number. And when you have your camera set on aperture priority, the shutter speed will change in relation to your camera's light meter. So at 5.6, at 1/60th, it was fine. But as we go, f8 at 1/80th, it's still, the shutter needs to be open for a longer period of time. So the shutter needs to slow down. So once again, if your images look like these, where you have one correctly exposed image and they get progressively darker and darker as you go along, that means you need to change several things. One, make sure your camera is set for aperture priority. Two, you have your ISO on auto. This person had it on auto, but look at the shutter speed. It's all at 1/50. And as we know, our aperture is getting smaller and smaller. We need to open the shutter speed for a longer period of time. So if you have a problem, your images are underexposed, meaning not enough light, that means you need to change your camera to aperture priority and not shutter priority. Don't change your camera onto manual. If you have it all on manual and you dial in the shutter speed, you would have to change it every single time for every exposure. I hope this helps.